Okay, so I'm gonna start working on this special ring for Hailie. It's gonna have these 3 little emeralds. I don't know if you can see them. Here is the biggest one, which is tiny, but it is going to be such a pretty ring. I also have 2 little ones. They're teeny tiny right here. I'm gonna show you what that looks like. I'm gonna be making this bezel right here. Alright, so I'm gonna be working on the bezel for this little emerald guy right here. This thing is tiny. I'm going to use this short little bezel here. So first I'm going to just hold on to it and wrap it around. And it's really tiny. It's super slippery, but I'm just going to hold on to it and get kind of a rough size there. Cut it off here with my shears. Put it aside. So now I've got this little rough shape. It's a little bit too big. It's fine. So now I have to wrap it around. I think I'm going to use some pliers. I'm going to use these little square-edged pliers. I think that'll be about the right size to make some bends in this bezel so that it fits around the stone a little bit more tightly. See how that looks. Oh, these are so tiny I'm going to lose them. I'm going to put these over here so I don't drop them. Alright. That looks about right. So I'm just going to keep doing that all the way around, making corners, and see how that fits. It would be amazing if it fit the first time. It really doesn't need to, because after I solder it, I will shape it a little bit better, but I just need to get a good shape for the soldering so I know how big to make it. Oh, this little guy is so slippery. Alright, so there we go. I'm going to use my bezel pusher here just to push it in a little bit to get a good shape there. And that actually looks like it's just about perfect. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know, but it's just about perfect. When I get that soldered, it's going to probably be just about right. So I've got my little bezel ready to work. I've got it cut to just the right size, and it's super flush. I've got it butted up right against each other. Adjust that just a little bit. So I'm going to put some flux on it. I'll use my flux tweezers. So this is just some borax and other stuff to help the solder flow, keep the metal clean. I'm going to set it up here on its edge.
Am I doing mine? No cutting.
And get some hard solder. I always use hard on my bezels so it doesn't flow when everything else is being put together. Alright, let's get a nice little piece in there. Alright, and here we go. Let's get my solder pick, just in case I need to move something. Alright, striker. There it is. Alright, let's make some fire. There we go. Alright, so silver is different than gold because you have to heat up the whole piece, not just where you're soldering. This is a tiny little piece, so I have to be really careful. Oh, there it goes. And pull it through the other side. And we're done. That was it. That little piece is soldered now. Alright, so I've got my bezel out of the pickle. It looks nice and clean. It's a little bit smashed. Smashed it with my tweezers. But I'm going to see if it fits onto my stone here. It does, it fits really well. It's nice and tight. Push it around a little bit just to make sure that my sides are straight. I'm holding it with the back of the stone up so that I can push right there on that back edge. That'll help make the right size and shape. Alright, the other thing I'm going to do is, if I can find my Sharpie, I want to mark the back of the stone so that I can mark where the bezel, the seam is on the bezel, so I know which way to put the stone in. It looks like it's perfectly symmetrical, but they never are. Okay, well, I can't seem to find my fine line Sharpie, so I'll have to use this fatter one. It's fine. So, I'm gonna mark it. There's the seam. Can't really see it, which is good. You don't want to see it. I'm gonna put a dot right there on the back of the stone. It'll just wipe off when I'm ready to set it, but that way I'll know which way I need to set the stone. Oh, can you see that? So, anyway, next I'm going to push it through. I'm going to push the stone through the bezel a few times to make sure that it fits and that it'll, that the top is the right shape, so that it fits into the bezel once I have it set on a piece of metal on the backing plate. Because if it's not right, it won't fit once it's set. And I don't want it to be too warped. There's some correction you can make when you're setting stones, but not a whole lot. Oh, I don't want to lose it. Alright, so I'm going to work on this, and I will come back when I'm ready to put it on the back plate. Alright, so I'm getting ready to solder the bezel onto the back plate. So this is a piece of 24 gauge sheet, and I'm putting a lot of flux on it. It's kind of just helps it stay clean. And I'm going to take my bezel, put lots of flux on that, and set it right there in the center. I'm going to trim all of this sheet off so I can use a tiny little piece, because I'm not doing any designs on the outside of this particular stone. I am going to use I'm going to use medium solder on this. I have these little, I use wire solder. These are just little chips that I've cut out of the wire, and I keep them in this little bowl so I know that they're already ready. And it's not going to take very much. I can use some tiny little pieces in here. So I think I'll use two of these smallest ones. Alright, so I've got that set in there. Alright, here comes the fun part. Let's see if you guys can see this work. So with this flux, it kind of bubbles up a little bit, and you have to move stuff around sometimes. I've got it pretty watery today, which is not ideal. So I just let it bubble up and push the solder back to the edge. A lot of people like to solder on a tripod with a mesh, like a wire screen. I don't like doing that. I don't know why. The screen seems to act more like a heat sink, and I have a harder time controlling my temperature. So I use my solder pick, and oh, there it went. I don't know if you saw that, but as soon as I hit it from underneath, the solder flowed on the top. So that's it. Now that bezel is stuck to that sheet. Now into the pickle it goes. So I've got the bezel and the back plate out of the pickle. It looks nice and clean. I can look all the way around it and see that it's soldered all the way down, all the way around the bottom. No gaps, so that's good. So next I'm going to trim off the extra. I always like to use my shears, it just makes it so much faster. I guess at this point I should also double check and make sure my stone is going to fit. So here's my little trick for that. Get a piece of dental floss. Lay it across. Let's see, where's my seam? Alright, I'm going to put my seam closest to me so I know where it is. I'm going to lay that in there. And get my stone. There's my mark so I know where my bezel goes. Lay that in there. And there it goes. It's going to fit perfectly. It's going to be good. And then I can use the dental floss to pull it right out. Alright, so now I use my file. It's just a number 4 file. It's a half round file. This is my all-purpose file. I use it for almost everything. And I'm just going to file it. I'm going to come down here to my bench pin. Camera mount is a little bit wiggly. Alright, so I'm just going to file down these edges until they're even with the bezel. Alright, I'll be back in a little bit. I am going to start working on the design on this piece. It's going to be a little bit tricky because I have to do it in sections. So I'm going to start with just one solder joint. I don't want to mess things up. This is an important ring, so I want to do it right. So I'm looking in my hard solder for a tiny piece because I don't need very much. So there we go. I'll put that little piece right there. All right, let's see if I can do this without messing it up. So I'm just going to solder just this joint right here where I've got some Sharpie marks. Pick up this little ball of solder. I'm using hard. Alright, and now I'm going to just warm this up a little bit. And put this little drop of solder right in that joint. Ah, I dropped it. Dropped it again. Alright, let's try from this side. Alright, let's see if I can get it to go right in there. Alright, I think it's there. I'll heat this thing up. Let's get that solder to flow. Right there. Come on, go. To be really gentle or the wire will melt. Well, it flowed. Let's see, did it attach? Yep. Alright, so I got one side soldered. I'm going to work on the other side now. Only took me 2 tries on that side. Let's see how many tries this side takes me. A little bit of solder right there. Alright, in a good spot. See if I can get it to flow. It's close. Oh, come on. Go down to the bottom. Go down, down. Excellent. All right. I've got a couple more twists added to it since last time, and I'm just going to solder some of these little links together so they don't come apart. So there we go. I'm using hard solder again. Get this a little heated up. I'm going to put that on later. Alright, I'm going to work just on this end for now. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Oh, there it went. Alright, there it goes. Alright, now I'm going to work on this side. And my little solder ball. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but there it goes. Alright. Alright, so I'm getting ready to solder the ends of this design together. I don't know if you can see. I have them bound together with just some thin wire at the ends. That part will be cut off. But I just wanted to make sure that they were tight together when I'm soldering this. I've got two little chips of solder sitting there in the crevice, and I'm hoping that it'll just flow neatly and fill in that gap to hold them together. Let's see what happens. That one went perfect. Come on, all the way. Alright, so now I have my piece of sheet cut out. I have my design nice and flat and all soldered together. And now I'm going to solder it on. So I'm going to put a nice heavy dose of flux on here. Both sides. And I'm going to put some flux on this. Alright, and then I'm going to set it on there. I want to get it pretty well centered. There we go, that's flat. Alright, and I'm not going to worry about getting all of it soldered down all at once because I'm going to have to bend it and manipulate it a little bit to get it to lay flat. But I'm just going to start with a little bit. Wash my hands off. I'm going to use medium solder to do this. So I've got just some little pieces of wire that I've cut up. I'm going to put some down here. Put a little bit in here. Looking at where it's making good contact already. Put solder where it's already contacting it, and then it'll flow to wherever it's touching. Solder doesn't really fill gaps. It flows with capillary action for anything this has a good contact already. All right, let's see how this goes. feel like we need some music for this. I'm going to lift it up and heat it from underneath because I don't want the solder to climb up onto the wire. I want it to flow onto the sheet, the sheet under the wire. You can see it starting to, the flex is starting to melt. It's changing color a little bit. There it goes. Right with the climax of the music. That was perfect. Alright, out of the pickle, you can see there is some gaps here on the edge. I'm going to hit it with a hammer a few times. I've got my rubber mallet, or my rawhide mallet. I've got this steel plate on a stump. And I'm just going to whack it. I'm going to give it a few good whacks. Just try to coerce it down next to the sheet a little bit better. Alright, that looks better. Alright, back to the soldering. I sure hope this turns out as pretty as I am envisioning it. Alright, got a pretty good flow on that one. Alright, into the pickle. Alright, so I have finished soldering this. It's looking pretty good. So my next step is to I'm going to use my saw and cut out the design. Alright, I'm going to lube up my saw a little bit. Alright, I'm going to work on this and I'll be back when it's done. I cut out the design and I've already filed it. So now it's looking pretty good. So my next step, before I shape it around the mandrel, I want to put my maker's mark on the back. So I have this little disc that I've already stamped. see that. It has my Sunburst, my initials, and Sterling. So before I solder it, I'm going to put some solder on the back of this. It's called sweat soldering. I'm going to melt it and pickle it, and then I don't have to worry about making a mess with solder when I'm actually putting it on the ring. So first step, of course, is to flux, and I'm going to go ahead and use medium solder for this. I'm going to use these little flattened chips. I'm going to put quite a bit because I want it to flow. It's going to have to fill that whole space. I'm going to put one more. All right. Solder kind of jumps around while it's drying out. I want to melt my disc, just the solder. There we go. I'm kind of spread it out a little. All right, there we go. No, not pickle, flux. And flux this. All right, this is a little tricky. I don't want my whole piece to flow. I don't want all this stuff on the front to fall off. So I have to really be careful on how much heat I put on this. Getting close. All right, I think that did it. All right, so I have it cut out and I've made it into I bent it around a ring mandrel. Now it looks a lot more like a ring. It looks a little wonky because it's kind of squished because I need to have that joint right there. I don't know if you can see that. That joint right there needs to be as tight as I can get it so that the solder flows and so that it doesn't make a gap. And so here we go with the flux. I think I'm going to use medium solder. I'm a little worried about everything flowing at the bottom, so I'm going to use some locking pliers to hold it to kind of act as a heat sink. It could backfire, but the heat will go into the pliers. It should stop at the pliers and not flow everything that's underneath. But I don't want to use easy yet. I'm not quite ready to use easy. I want to use easy for my very last step. Sorry I'm so quiet. I'm kind of concentrating. I don't really know what to say here.
Even that's funny.
It's getting close.
Right. Yummy.
Almost.
Yummy.
Okay.
You want
Got it.
anything?
Yes,
I've done my lunch.
Okay then.
Look. Lots of cookies.
Okay. Well, I've got the ring soldered. Now let's make it into the right shape. All right. So I'm ready to solder this band together again. I had to cut it apart once because it was too big. So I have now made it hopefully the right size. Got my little piece of solder on my pick. I'm gonna drop it right there. The tweezers are working really well as a heat sink, so the rest of my ring isn't flowing. Just want the solder to flow just right here at the joint. And I'm using medium solder. It's close. Almost. Almost. It's not quite filling in the gap. There it goes. Alright, into the pickle. Alright, I'm trying again with this ring. This is probably I've lost count now. I think it's the 4th time I've tried to get it the right size. I'm really afraid of making it too small. So it keeps ending up too big. So, let's see if we can get it this time. If I can get the little ball to come off. Plus I keep getting interrupted by my daughter who's having a little bit of a rough day. I think we've turned a corner with that though. Alright, it's close. I feel like it's too far on that side. I'm trying to pull it over here. There it goes, and oh, that looks perfect. Okay guys, I'm going to put this bezel on the ring. A little bit nervous because I'm using medium. I'm afraid that everything around it is going to flow, so let's see how it goes. I already have sweat soldered some medium solder on the back of this little bezel cup. Don't want to melt the bezel cup because I don't know if I have another one, and I don't really want to make a bezel for this tiny stone. Okay, I think it flowed. Alright, I'm going to put it in the pickle and make sure it's stuck, but I think it is. Okay, I'm getting ready to solder the center bezel cup on. I guess it's a bezel cup. I made the bezel. So the other two, I already have the sides on. Those went well. This is my last bezel cup, and then I'm not sure what I'm going to do after this. I think I'm going to put some little wire details around the edges of each of the bezel cups just to kind of tie it all together. Maybe twisted, I'm not sure. Hoping this whole thing doesn't fall apart. Alright, I think it flowed. I think we're good. Put it in the pickle and see what happens. So I'm going to work on doing some finishing touches on the, well, not finishing touches, but some finishing. I've got this Kratex wheel, my flex shaft. I'm just gonna, I want to kind of smooth out my file marks a little bit. need a file. The Cratex attachment is great, but it doesn't get into tiny little spaces, so I want to clean this up a little bit. It's not quite tight enough, so I'm going to use this file to clean that up, get that closer to the design. Alright, I'm going to work on this and I'll come back when I'm done. I finished using that brush, or the this Cratex, and I used file and I cleaned up a little bit, but there are some spots in here that I just can't really get to, so I'm going to use this tool. This is a bristle, I think it's called a bristle wheel. This is 80 grit, so it's pretty rough, so it's going to leave some brushed marks. I already did this side. It helps get into these little grooves into here in the corners, so here we go. Finishing process is pretty much why I can't keep a good manicure for very long. Keep running over my fingernails. Alright, I'll come back in a little bit when this step is done. There were some gaps on the side here around these bezels, and so I decided to put these kind of twisted wire. I think it looks really pretty and it really makes it look finished. I'm really really pleased with the way this is turning out. So I haven't soldered them down yet. I'm a little nervous to do it. This should be the last solder joint that I do, so I'm going to use easy solder because I really don't want anything else to flow. So I'm hoping that easy will flow pretty easily. Huh, didn't mean to make a pun. So I'm gonna clamp it there and here, and let me get some easy solder. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and add what then? Alright, my daughter is here. She's going to watch me do this. Oops. She's not very happy about watching me. What is happening?
I'm not happy.
Oh, she's not happy.
I need to do something.
I will be happy if this flows without a problem. Alright, it's starting. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Come on. Alright. That is a good start. I'm going to pickle it and I'll hit it from the other side and I think we're good. Alright, so it is time to set these stones. I'm super excited. This is going to be so pretty. I already have one of these stones kind of set. It's mostly pushed in. I need to do some more cleaning up on it. This one is in, but it's not set yet. So I'm going to show you how I use this tool. This is called a bezel pusher. I'm just going to carefully push all the way around. So a good stone is cut with a little bit of an angle on the edge, so that when you push in the top of the bezel, it'll hold the stone from coming out of the bottom, or out of the top. It won't. The bottom is bigger. So I'm just trying to fill in any gaps. Trying to smooth it the best I can. I can put quite a bit of pressure on this. This is an emerald. It's a pretty tough stone. This is probably a Colombian emerald. I want to say the hardness of an emerald is an 8. It's a beryl. It's the same family as aquamarine. Alright, that looks pretty good. Trying to feel any wobble. I don't feel any wobble in it. Okay, so the next one, man, that's pretty. So the center stone, when I put it in there, it's not flat. The back of the stone is not flat. So let me take it out. So I'm going to use a little trick. A lot of people use sawdust in their settings, but sawdust over time can absorb water and can degrade a little bit. So this is just a plastic dowel. It's actually a clothes hanger that I ran through a oh, that's too big, through a pencil sharpener to get these shavings. So one of the things I do on my on some of my translucent stones is I put a shiny foil on the back of the stone, so if I do need to lift it up, raise it like this, or restabilize it, that you won't be able to see through it, and it just adds some shininess to the stone. I just dropped it. So you can see it's this shiny foil tape. Let's see how this fits now. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I don't know. Oh, I think it still needs to come up more. Alright, so I have this sticky stuff. This is not super sticky anymore. It's actually, you know when you get magazines and they have like those paper ads stuck to them? It's like this strip of glue, sticky glue stuff that isn't really glue, it's just sticky. I save it and I put it in this little container because it works really well to get stones out of settings. So it just pops out. So let me get some more of these shavings in here. Alright, I'm gonna sign off for a minute while I get this settled. I'll come back when the stone is set and or when it's in and ready to be set. I'll see you in a little bit. Alright, that's better. So I've got that center stone set. Well, it's not set yet, it's in there. I'm gonna get my bezel pusher. Can't quite see. There. Okay. I'm going to start here on the edge. I'm going to push down on the stone because it's a little bit bouncy. And go opposite. Alright, there we go. So I'm just going to do some last minute little pushing here. I don't want to push on the corners too much because I don't want to bend them in. I want them to be nice and crisp to show off the hexagon shape of this stone. It's a really unique stone. I haven't seen any others like it. It's a beautiful shape. Alright. I am really happy with it. I think that's going to be beautiful once it's polished up. Okay, so I'm getting ready to polish the ring. I've got it right here. It's all set. I'm going to use this wheel first. This is a 3M, I don't even know what it's called. It's like a Scotch-Brite. It's kind of like the back of a scrubby sponge. And I'm just going to use that to kind of rough it up a little bit. Not rough it, but it's going to give it a satin finish. So that looks pretty good. I'm gonna change over now to my muslin buff. So this is muslin. It's kind of like a cotton. I'm gonna use this polishing compound. It's called ZAM. This part gets really hot, so I have to put on my gloves. These gloves are these are just leather, I don't know, gardening gloves or something. Just utility gloves. But I just don't like to burn my fingers. You can see they're pretty worn out. They work pretty well to keep my fingers protected and not burned. So this is where the ring should come alive. Okay, well, there it is. I'm gonna